All right, just a reminder that this is the collage that I'm working on. Doesn't really matter which way I hold it, just so you can see what I began with. And this is where I am right now. This is from the last video. And I'm going to start to add the value in the beard now. So there's a lot of gray in through here. I am going to work with a 6B, the ebony pencil, which is much darker. That mustache is fairly dark. I can see too that the line to where the mouth is fairly dark. You notice that it doesn't matter which way I work on my drawing. I could work on it this way if I wanted to. Actually, I like that better. And it doesn't really matter. So I'm dealing with hair in through here. So hair is a lot of single pieces that bundle together. You can think of it kind of like cross-hatching. There's a bit of a thickness to it, the mustache, so I'm going to put a little bit more shadow under here. I know there's a lot of little whites in through here. I'm not going to be too worried about that right now. I'm bearing down at different intensities, some lighter, some darker, but this mustache is pretty darn dark. This is where the paper is cut. This is one image, this is a second image, and I want to preserve that nice sharp edge. I like that it goes from one image to another one, and you get the clue very clearly that you are dealing with two different photographs. I kind of enjoy that. So to get this line nice and sharp, I'm starting my pencil here and pulling down this way rather than coming up this way, because it's hard to stop right at that edge. So I'm putting my pencil at that edge point, pushing down and pulling those little mustache hairs. There's quite a bit of darkness around. This mustache is actually dark all the way out to here. I think I'm gonna just do the mustache with you and with the video, and then I'll come back later when I've got the rest of the beard done, but this will show you kind of how I'm working on it. A little bit grayer here, a little bit darker towards the sides. Sides are grayer, darker. Front is just a little bit lighter. So there is a little bit of white, but not this much. So I am going to take one of my Q-tips, which is going to be my rubbing stick. And the first thing I'm going to do is just rub this down. So what we're doing in here is we're trying to imply different textures. We've got the skin, we've got the hair. You can see that's not bad. I'm going to add a few more darks, I think, in through here. And I'll show you how to add some whites also. All right. I purchased this eraser guard, which I think architects generally use, so that if you have a bunch of circles or you have some straight lines, you can use that to do an erase mark. I'm just going to do a freehand erase mark. Let me take my eraser, and I'm going to take my matte knife again, and all of my edges on this are rounded off. So I'm just going to cut a little bit off so that I get some nice sharp edges on my eraser. it doesn't matter if when you erase it's a little bit bigger. It probably will be. This is very hard to control. So I'm just going to come in, press down, and take a little out. And then you see what I'm doing? I'm getting rid of it over on the side. Otherwise, when you do this, what you're doing is I've just picked up a lot of graphite on that edge. And unless I take it off, all I'm going to do is smudge it down there. So I think that's enough. And obviously, those are way too big to be considered hairs in the beard. So I'm going to cut the size down using my pencil. And I can also decide, well, it's going to be light, but not quite that light. So I'll just rub it in a bit. So you can use your Q-tip, you can use your finger to get a little bit of that suggestion of that hair. And now I'm not really looking at the drawing anymore. I mean, the collage. I'm just trying to see what I can get away with to make it look natural, that there might be some gray hairs in the beard. I'm going to add a few more darks in through here. And I think that looks pretty good. I might have to tweak it a little bit once I get the rest of the beard in to pull the values together, but that's not going to be too hard. So I hope that that makes sense. Let me now work with this detail of these tiny little beads across here. Let me see if I can work with this. So the first thing I'm going to do, I had left this area pretty light where the necklace was going to be. So let's do this. Let's cover this up. Not as much graphite, but some. And I'm going to take the dots and I'm going to put it right over the area. Ooh, this is hard to see. Where the graphite is light. And I'm only going to use those first 3 circles. I leave this down. I erase that out. Can you tell that it's lighter? So see what happens? I have some beads there now. Now they're a little too far apart for this particular necklace. So I'm trying to add some more in through there. And you see how I doubled up on those? And now I'm going to come back in and just go around the edge a bit. Go around the edge, get that black all the way in there. And then I will add some more. That's not too bad. These beads are quite light up and through here, get dark and through here. You can also just make a series of circles if you don't have a guard, you don't want to use a guard. So I've got a bunch of circles which implies those beads up and through here. And what I'm going to do is once I get those beads drawn in, I'm going to take my little rubbing stick and just rub them down a bit because they're not quite that dark. So this area, I either need to erase this and draw the circles in, or where the gray is, I'm just going to drop my guard again, erase out 3 more, and try to get a few more in there. The great thing about this is, you know, it's really easy to go backwards on this if it's not quite working. You can always rub it down, erase it out. I'm gonna just get those a little bit more clear here. And I'm going to do the circle thing on the way back. Come in and cut a little bit. And I think that looks pretty good. And again, if you think it looks a little bit too bright, boy, I am just barely touching this. Just rub it down a bit. And now you've got beads that come from front to back, from bigger to smaller, from lighter to darker. So that area is pretty well done. The hands. So the hands are actually a pretty light gray. I'm not going to consider it white, except for maybe that knuckle right in through there. The rest of it, I'm going to say, has a gray over the top of it. So the first thing I'm going to do is gray out that area on the hands. I'm jumping around just to show you different techniques. So with this, you can, again, take some graphite. You see how much graphite I just pulled up there? Let me turn this around and start with those darker areas. And I'm just going to faintly rub in some graphite across the surface. So that nothing is white. So that I'm going to be adding the light as well as adding the dark. I am not going to actually draw with my pencil in through here because I'd rather not have a lot of marks show in this area. This I want to feel like skin. The skin on these hands is pretty smooth. So I can rub with my fingers. I can use this to rub with. Again, you can take a scrap piece of paper, put a lot of graphite down here, which becomes, in a sense, your color that you pick up and you rub on here. The other thing you can do is take your pencil and just gently take off, scrape off a little bit of the graphite. So now you basically have a graphite powder here. I'm going to roll my Q-tip in that and add that to the surface. So there's a number of ways you can do this. The idea is not making marks, using your either fingers to rub or rubbing stick to rub or this Q-tip to rub, maybe even combining different things, but basically not white. And then what I will be doing is I'll be adding the darks and I will be adding the lights from there. I think the hands will be the last thing I finish. I'm going to stop this video right now and finish doing the beard and this dark area down here and then come back and work on the hands with you. All right, I've finished adding the blacks in through these background areas. I finished up the necklaces. I still have this just tone. The big thing I did was I've begun the beard and I thought I'd come back to you. So I'm hoping you can clearly see that picture of the beard. There's some pretty good dark, like in here, down across here, in through here, across here, across here. You can see it's a little bit grayer here, a little bit lighter, 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 and I love dealing with those lips. And you see the lips? So that's pretty fun too. So I'm taking the gesture. You see how the hair grows in different ways across the face? I am starting to add the value by playing with the strokes of the beard. So you can see I've got that dark here, I've got the dark across here, down and through here, I've got these lighter areas, I've got the way this grows. So I'm depending on my gesture first in this piece. I'm using the mark making of the pencil to help me start the value on this piece. The next thing I'm going to do now, I've got relatively good indications of the value on this, the light and the dark. I've got the directions going on. So the next thing I'm going to do is I will rub it. And I'm going to start by rubbing. You can try rubbing with a paper towel too, or if you want to take a small piece of a chamois cloth that does not have a lot of charcoal on it. I am putting my scrap paper underneath here to protect the drawing. I don't want to be rubbing my hand on the drawing. And the first thing I'm going to do is just rub this in. Do you see how already it's almost starting to look like beard hair? I've still got some work to do after this part is done, but this is, think about it like my base, what I'm starting with before I get into all the details. The whole idea of working bigger to smaller comes up again with this. You start with the larger bits of information and kind of work your way down to the smaller stuff that continues to be something that we think about in our drawing. And a little bit more rubbing here. All right, so already it's not bad. It's not finished, but it's not bad. So the lips are light, but they're not that light. So I'm going to take what I have and just rub it down until I feel like it's pretty good. And I think that looks pretty good. So see how it's settled down into the beard now. So I'm going to do two things with the beard at this point. One is I'm going to be adding more dark lines, and the other thing is I'm going to be adding some white lines. And I'm not copying this like in great detail. I am just cutting in some lights first, and some of those areas in which I have lights. Remember, I'm going to go back and work on these. And I'm keeping the mark making of my eraser going in the same direction as the growth of the beard. A little bit, I could add a little bit more light in through here. And you know, there are some curly cues to the beard. I am not attempting that. It's just a little bit too much to try to get a little curl out of this eraser. But I do want the sense that some of these beard hairs are going across his jacket or whatever it is he's wearing. I'm not too worried because if I get too many lights in, I can always put some darks back in. And if I get too many darks, I can cut some lights back in. So I should get rid of all that eraser stuff. So I'm going to tone that down a little bit. Now I think that is pretty much done in this area. I really like that, the way that works. I don't know if I mentioned that I'm working on a really hard surface, not my cardboard. The cardboard basically will bend and the paper will bend, and so you would have buckling with your paper if you did that. If you work with a hard surface, those fibers to the paper are going to stay flat. If you work on a surface that bends, you're breaking the fibers, and thus you have that warping happening. I think I mentioned it earlier, but not recently, so just want to point that out again. I'm bringing some of the background into the beard. I'm bringing some of the beard into the background. It's looking pretty nice. Let me check. Some nice darks in through here. This gets super dark right in through here. Just graying that out a little bit. I'm pretty damn close to being done with this beard. So again, it's not the idea of drawing each individual hair. The idea is to draw enough of them and in a way that reminds you of hair, and you set the illusion that way. So don't think like when you have 1,000 million windows in a building, or you have a lot of field grass, that it's not about drawing each one of them. It's about how can you use your gesture, your mark making, your tools to set up a situation where the eye is tricked into feeling like, oh, I'm looking at beard. All right? The other thing I wanted to mention was using your kneaded eraser. So this is a new one. I just got it from Arch because I didn't have one here at home. And I'm going to show you a good way to use it. Let's say you get an area in the beard, for instance, which you feel like, oh, I missed that. I should have been lighter, and I made it too dark. And erasing back with a white eraser every time is maybe not the answer. So let's see what we can do with this one. I'm just having trouble getting all the plastic off of it. All right, so this is a nice squishy. This is great to play with when you're not sure what you want to do. So I'll just show you in a dark area, like right here, what'll happen. I'm going to flatten my eraser out so that I get a nice big area on my eraser. And if you know about Silly Putty, have ever used it, you want to just press down, nothing else, but pressing down. And then you want to pull this off. Can you see, this is the gray eraser with nothing. This is the gray eraser with all the graphite that it's picked up. And if you look here, you can see how much lighter that is. So let's say you want to make it lighter. You just fold this back in, pull it a few times, and Lord only knows where it goes, but it's gone. The eraser is clean again. Flatten it out. Put it back over that area. Just press it down again. And whoops, I folded it over. I think you can see that it's gotten some eraser. There's the clean side. There's the gray side. And see how it got lighter again. Now, it will never go back to white. For that, you're going to have to use your white eraser. But it is brilliant for changing some values. Like, let's say I wanted to make his beard a little bit lighter. pick some up, put it back in, pick some up, put it back in. By put it back in, I mean fold it back in, sorry. And that's not too bad. And you could go, oh my God, I did it too light. Well, then you can either rub or you can add some more, because this is such a rough area, I'm going to add some more pencil in it. And let's say you went, oh my God, what was I thinking? This should have been dark. You can just put the black back in there to indicate that dark area. So between those tricks, you should be able to finish up your graphite drawing. And now all I have left really is to do the hands. All right, I'm going to be working on the hands, so let's take a look. You notice how this whole front area of the hand is pretty light, thumb is pretty light, arm is very light, fingers are a little bit grayer, this part of the arm is a little bit grayer. This is the darkest part, right in through here, this back palm to the hand, and you've got some pretty good shadow right in through here. That's where I'm going to start working. So remember that I've already toned the hands down with a little bit of graphite, not making marks with my pencil, but taking some extra graphite here, putting it on a Q-tip and rubbing it in. I need my reference photo. So there's a lot of dark right behind the knuckles. And on this side, I might again want to take my blade and just make some dust off to the side. Make sure you don't put it on the paper. I should separate these a little bit more, but I don't want to lose you in the image size. All right, so I've got some graphite. Might not be a bad idea either to keep a wet cloth around, which I forgot, to wipe your hands down every once in a while so you're not dragging the dirt around. I've got my erasers at the ready. I've got my dust. I'm going to put some dust on my Q-tip. And add some more value back there. I can see that actually the top of the hand is darker than the beard, which is going to be an important thing for me to take a look at. The tip of the thumb has light, but not the side of the thumb. Top of the hand continues to have some darker value on it, whereas the side of the hand is going to start to get some light. Now this is very dark, but very soft under here, underneath the arm. I'm pretty sure I'm going to need to pull my pencil back in for this area, but let's just get this started under here. The fingers are in shadow. The bottom fingers are in shadow from the top hand. The hand is casting a shadow. All right, so I'm pretty much done now, I think, with, at least for right now, with the powdered graphite and the Q-tip. I'm gonna go back to my, you can work with a 2B or a 6B here. I kind of enjoy working with my 6B, but you've got to be really careful that you don't press down as hard as like when you were drawing these areas. And it's kind of like when we did the vine charcoal first with the charcoal. You put down this layer of graphite first, and it's like having little ball bearings underneath. Your marks are not adhering to the paper so much as they're kind of floating on top of the paper in that mess of powdered graphite. So it's going to take a little bit longer for the marks to sit in. Need to work on them a little bit more, and I'm going to keep rubbing it to see what kind of value I ended up having. That's pretty good. This is the darkest part to the hand, right in through here. So now I'm pressing down more. And that continues across the top of the hand near the knuckles. And there's a pretty good strong light in through here. That continues, this is like the core of the shadow right across here from this knuckle back. It's wrapping around the hand. I don't know if you can see it, but there's some folds in the hand here. And the darkest, those folds continue up across the hand and across in through here, and then this is just a little bit darker. It's darker than the beard. Gotta rub that down. Unlike the beard, I don't want marks showing here. I want this to feel like soft skin. So I'm going to rely a lot on the rubbing. And I can see that this isn't bad, but this knuckle needs to go back more. So I just want to get rid of that. I'm just using my white eraser. That stretches across. This is very strong here. This is where I said earlier that this is probably going to be light across there. So now I've got that happening. I'm really trying hard not to rub my hand across the paper. Paying attention to how the value changes, an eighth of a step can really make a difference in making your drawing believable. For instance, this back of the hand, yes, it's dark, but how dark? And is it the same dark everywhere? And the answer is no, actually. It has a series of grays that it goes through to make that finger happen. I've got the shadow in between the two fingers, which really gently melts out on this side. It's a very, very soft transition. The finger on this side is the same. I've got a very soft transition of value coming across this side to the finger. I'm going to rub that. And I might decide, ooh, this part right here, this little thing, that got a little too dark. So that's where I'm going to play with that kneaded eraser and just take a little bit out to make it feel like it's a little bit lighter. There's a super dark behind this finger, kind of a triangular area that's underneath the palm and behind the finger. And this becomes then a shadow over the finger down below. It's pretty soft. And then I have a bit of a knuckle here. And I have the tip of the finger. Make sure to pay close attention to the shape of the fingers, the tips of the fingers. I don't really see a very hard edge to the nail, but I can see that there's a hint to the nail. So I'm not gonna draw them in really strong. Just gonna play with that a little bit. And I've got cast shadow again across this finger from that finger. This is pretty straight and through here. There's a little bit of a wrinkle that I'm getting in there. That's important to get. This finger. And again, I'm looking very carefully. You can see the bed of the nail and then the nail itself. And what's happening is the nail is lighter, a little bit lighter on this side. I might leave that white while the finger gets a little bit of shadow, of gray on it. It's the finger that's not white. It's the nail that is white and through there. So this is the smallest one. A little bit of feeling of this happening. This finger gets fairly white though across here on the side. So I'm gonna let that happen. There's a nice little shadow between the two fingers. There's a cast shadow. She has a ring on. It's right in an area that's been crossed the grid. So it's a little bit hard to see. I'm just going to leave her ring off. I have a fold happening here. And I have a bit of a knuckle right about in through here. These are very light marks, but they indicate those folds in the knuckle. And then there's shadow. The way this light is revealed is by making this shadow. So you see how that works? Shadow, light, shadow, that's going to be lighter, be shadow here, and that will be lighter. So that's what I'm going to keep kicking around, and I'm going to do a bit more work, and then I'll bring it back for you to look at.